This is the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eric Huey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Matt, welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.
Thanks, Eric. Happy to be here.
How's it going this morning?
Good, man. Bright, sunshiny day. No complaints from my end. How about yours?
Awesome. Yeah, same here. Look forward to our conversation. If you could just start off by telling the audience who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So my name is Matt Moylan. I work for a company here locally called Thomas McGee, and we're also a division of risk strategies company. And what we do is risk management solutions for businesses, people in all different capacities.
Very nice. Why insurance? Why you pick this field? You know, why do this versus anything else? What's your why?
Yeah. So I come from a long line of educators, and I actually got my education degree myself. So the educational, knowledge dropping, if you will, or, being a massive impact on somebody's life has been passed down, right? And I've seen my parents do it. I kind of started doing it, and it just wasn't the best for me. So I found an avenue through insurance just by happen chance that, I can make that similar impact with just as many people, if not more, simply by being that resource and providing that knowledge.
Very nice. Yeah. That's a strong why. I like it. So for people that don't know, what does, your typical day job look like? What is risk management in a nutshell? What types of projects you're working on?
Yeah. So a typical project for me, I'm working with an individual who oftentimes owns a business or is a key executive or, management type position in a company, and high income earners a lot of times as well, who, they're juggling multiple plates, right? So they have their personal life, their personal assets, their personal succession and wealth transfer plan for their family. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, they have the business side, right? Yeah. So they're in charge of, or partially in charge of, creating that liability and risk protection strategy. Mm-hmm. That also includes the succession of what that business looks like and how it can be implemented. So that's a typical type of client for myself.
Yeah, I look forward to drilling down today on the latter portion of that. A big reason why I wanted to have you on the show is that I don't feel like I found plenty of research and articles out there that have backed this up. But what I'm finding is a lot of small and mid-sized businesses, even large corporations, are not really succession planning that well in terms of preparing the next generation of leaders to take over the business. There's, a knowledge gap, if you will, and certain things and certain standards the business holds. Is my assumption, findings, feelings on that correct? Would you agree? And if so, why?
Yeah, so a couple points to hit on. So your assumption is correct in that what I find is a lot of businesses, no matter the size, have a lack in strategic planning. And whether that's that they've never thought about it, they've never cared about it, they don't even know about it, or they just kind of go day by day and don't really think about their goals moving forward. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, the succession planning for the larger, very, public companies or the very, very large companies, that succession planning looks a lot different, and it's more streamlined because it's more of like the next man up type of concept, right? Where there's less thinking involved, and the volatility of maybe we'll grow so big that we sell. Yeah, it's less there than a small to medium sized business. So in that there is a need to define what is the plan and what does that look like. So that's in a very roundabout way. Yes, your assumptions are correct. but it's different for each different size of business.
Yeah, and you make a great point. I didn't even think about it from that perspective, but it makes sense that the larger businesses or the larger corporations are going to have more people to fill the pipeline, so to speak. So the smaller mid-sized businesses are probably more at risk to have a lack of succession planning or someone with the skill set knowledge to step into those leadership roles. So interesting perspective for sure. So I guess on that note, I mean, what's the risk to these small and medium-sized businesses if they don't have a good plan in place for the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah. So, a lot of those smaller to medium-sized businesses, they have one partner, or maybe it's a husband, wife, or, a partnership like that, where it's just a couple of them, and maybe even up to 5 or 6, but not many. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the scaling, right. Every small business wants to scale to some sort. Right. So what does that look like for them? Do they want to eventually sell? Right. That's a factor that plays into the risk management and succession plan.
Mm-hmm.
What if a partner wants to back out, sell their shares of the company and move forward in a different direction? Right. Yeah. That's going to be a significant portion of the succession plan. And, the other thing that it happens, but it's hard to talk about, is what if a partner passes away?
Yeah.
And that can be at any age.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a CPA firm. They've done it for 60, 70 years, and they're old guys getting ready to retire and something happens. Or it could be a young, tech entrepreneur group that, something happens, and that's inevitable. And that's why you have a succession plan in place. That's why it's important, to implement that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So on that note, what's a good succession plan look like overall? I mean, are there certain parts?
Yeah. So, again, a good example that I have is, there's no great true example. It's like me telling you, Eric, here's what you need to put in your will.
Yeah.
Right? I can
Good
give
answer.
you a good guess,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, it's going to be different for everybody. But key parts, every business should have some kind of, strategic plan in place put by, an estate planner.
Mm-hmm.
Should have some type of comprehensive wealth management or financial planning for the cash flow.
Yeah.
The tax advice, for different tax strategies, and then comprehensive risk management. So those are kind of your 4 main pillars of a true strategic plan. So obviously I am one of those pillars.
Yeah.
So oftentimes what I see, or what makes sense in my world, is a buy-sell plan between different partners. Most important is key person coverage. And basically what that is it's protecting your top employees. So providing some kind of executive benefit, or if you say, hey, we're not going to give you a bonus this year, but every year for the next 5, we're going to give you a $10,000 bonus and put it into a policy specifically for you. That is a part of succession planning. And kind of the other one is disability between partners. And so, for a business that has, 2 partners, it's very common to have anywhere between 9 and 12 policies just between the 2 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What are some things that people can do, especially millennials in the workplace, as far as starting this conversation, getting this plan in place and getting these 4 parts that you mentioned? How do you suggest millennials go about doing that?
Yeah, I love this question. It's so future thinking and forward thinking. And, it doesn't matter if it's a millennial who is a business owner, or is a top executive, or is just a person in the company.
Yeah.
So the 3 main things kind of come to mind as far as actions that they can take now to learn or spark this conversation. The first one is talk to your top salesperson or your top, person in your company, not a partner.
Right.
So your person who is very well connected, very well respected in the company. That would be the number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 is approach your partner or partners and say, hey, I'm concerned about what my job security would look like. God forbid something happens to the business, whether that's the business sells, because we grow so much, or, that one of the partners leaves, or we get a new partner. Yeah. What does that look like? How does that impact me?
Yeah.
And then the third one is just referencing this podcast, and giving some really good resources. And you can even couple that with one of the other two that I mentioned in that, hey, here's a great resource. What's our plan look like?
Yeah.
And maybe that individual doesn't need to specifically know, but it at least gets that conversation or that thought process started.
Yeah. Great point. And thanks for the shameless plug there. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Great points. Yeah. I appreciate all your insights, Matt. That was awesome. As we wrap up here, one question I usually ask every guest is what people, books, resources have made an impact on your life and helped you get to where you are now in your profession.
Definitely. So I would like to thank one person, and that's Logan Freeman, for connecting us.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So I'm glad that we were able to connect through him. But then a couple of resources that I fall back on very regularly. So there's two books I read every quarter. And I know this also falls in line with what Logan does. But Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss has made a tremendous impact on me personally and professionally.
Yeah. That's a book on negotiating, right?
Yeah. It's a book about negotiating and not necessarily, sales negotiating. It's just life. Right. And, buying a car. Right. And so there's a lot of great examples of how to better negotiate really anything in life.
Okay.
Second one that I read every quarter is Grant Cardone's 10X rule.
Yep.
And although I'm not a Grant Cardone truther, he does have some really great motivating tools and thoughts and things to kind of implement at your leisure and at your will. So that's kind of the second one I refer to on a quarterly basis as well. Two that I've recently read that 100% I would recommend are Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. And that's basically, just if you're a salesman, it's, putting it out in a very simple concept and just being very, available to your audience. And then the last thing is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Pappson. So that book is about, finding what are you passionate about? What are you motivated towards? What is your one thing in your one business that you can help others really better than anybody else?
Sure. All great recommendations. Thanks for those. Yeah. And shout out to Logan. Logan was on episode 2 of the podcast, and he also did a book breakdown. I'm forgetting the episode number on that one, but for anyone who's interested in Grant Cardone's 10X rule or learning more about Logan, you can go back to earlier episodes and check those out. Matt, last question. Where can people best get a hold of you if they want business advice, personal advice on succession planning?
LinkedIn is the best place for me to connect with anybody. So shoot me a message, connect with me on there, and would love to touch base with really anybody.
Awesome. Matt, thanks so much for your time today and all the insights you provided.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, take care. That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GENWHY leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Huey, and thanks for listening to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.